Welcome to Up to No Good. Love is something we all look for in life, be it with a person, a place, a thing, anything really. You could say that as humans we love love, but most of us love unconsciously. And when we do this, it allows for love to be used blindly, misunderstood, and misused. But we can change all of that by demystifying the powerful force, love. Most people base their models of love on an idea, not one that we created, but one that we inherited. From the kind of care you received or didn't receive from your parents, to cultural guidelines, to fairy tales that we saw as kids, these things inform what we think of as love. We absorb these through observation, and then these become our blueprint for what we think love is and what it isn't. They even train our emotions to feel one way or another about certain things, and through this we identify what is normal and what isn't when it comes to love. Without a functional blueprint, our sense of attraction, attachment, and tolerance can lead us into situations that we think are loving, and in reality they turn out to be anything but. I know from experience. I had this problem for years. I have the divorce papers and the child support payments to prove it. I too used a faulty blueprint for love. Your understanding of love may come from external circumstances that shape your internal compass and then what you're guided towards. But if you change that and you first begin to look at the internal and what you're going towards and why, you can change the way you have a relationship with love as an idea. And when you do this, you change your understanding of love and you give yourself what you need first, and then you go out and look for what you want in life. This way, you can find what it is you're actually looking for rather than a mirage in the desert. And think about it for a moment. Would you say that there are things that you wouldn't do because they would cause you pain or hardship in life? If you did those things, would you have to live with guilt, shame, resentment, or remorse? If you think about this for longer than a moment, there are probably things that come to mind that you wouldn't do. And by not doing these, you engage in self-preservation. Would you let a hobby become an addiction to the point where it jeopardized your living situation or your financial stability? Would you give your love to someone who didn't treat it with the respect and value that it deserves? All of these questions have answers. And in most situations, we don't give our time, energy, and attention to things that we don't get some sort of value back out of. But love can be a little bit different. We can continue with hobbies that take up too much of our time, energy, attention, and resources. We can stay in a relationship that we know is no good for us, but we still have hope for the relationship, even though we know we shouldn't. Maybe because we're waiting for that fairy tale moment, or we think someone might change, or because we're just simply scared of being alone. Again, we love love. We can stay locked into a pattern of highs and lows without ever taking a step back and realizing that this isn't actually normal and this isn't what love should look or feel like. And this is why limits matter. Limits aren't walls that keep you boxed in. They're a floor. They're a standard that you don't go below. And those standards outline what love is and what it isn't. Love, at its best and simplest, is a catalyst for nurturing and growth. Not something that should drain you and leave you feeling lost. And there are key features to what love should provide and what it shouldn't. It should be mutual understanding that's achieved through honest and open communication. There should be dignity, where our actions are guided by preserving mutual benefit rather than pursuing self-serving interests. And there should be self-preservation, where we prioritize our own well-being so that we don't become sacrificial for someone else's well-being. And in doing so, we retain our identity and we don't lose ourselves in the relationship itself. There should be reasonable room for tolerating, and I mean reasonable. You should have no-goes and deal breakers, and then things that you can tolerate. No-goes and deal breakers are a one and done. Anything over here, within reason, is reasonable. We should be willing to tolerate some amount of mistakes, and the threshold for what constitutes a mistake versus a deal breaker, that's between you and your relationships. But the relationships that you have and the mistakes you're willing to forgive allow for growth in the relationship. And these are opportunities for you as well as your partner. Without standards in place for how the relationship should exist, love is just a feeling that we feel in between feeling disjointed, disrespected, disappointed, or even abused. And in some cases, we end up feeding into that very same cycle. But all of this is contingent on one thing alone, and that is the relationship you have with yourself and the standards you hold for yourself. The way you think about yourself, your self-worth, your value, your internally held self-image determines in large part what you will tolerate from other people, because it's the way you treat yourself that informs other people how to treat you. Most people use you as a guide for how to treat you. If you're a turbulent person who doesn't have very strong guiding principles or morals, odds are what drives you is going to be emotional stimulation. And in that case, it's very easy to mistake chaos for chemistry. Giving love to yourself is a skill. It can be developed over time, and I'll be upfront with you, it's not always easy, nor does it feel natural if you're not used to it. But the idea that you have of love and what you're finding when you're looking for love out there in life, if those things aren't measuring up to what they should be, then maybe it is time for a change. Maybe you do need to reassess what the idea you have of love is and what is normal when you think of love. Often what we define as natural is just what we're used to, what we find to be normal. But if what's normal and natural to you isn't working, it might be time for a change. Boundaries come from our internal moral compass, our understanding of what is right and what is wrong and why. If you want to feel a greater love between you and yourself, you need a greater understanding of what you should be treated like and why, and you have to do that for you. It's not as easy as sitting down and thinking, how could I better love myself? You actually have to put them into practice. It has to become a lived reality every day. If I said I'm really into temperance and self-discipline, but every time you see me I'm covered in Dorito dust and I've got Twix in my pocket, then I'm probably not living up to the idea that I'm setting forth for myself. I wouldn't be living up to my own standard, my own morals or boundaries, and that would be a shame on me. Now, I love snacking just as much as the next person, but self-preservation determines that I can't sustain my existence on junk food alone. If I'm actually into temperance, well, then I have to be tempered. There is a corresponding idea and action that produces a follow-through that gets the results in how we do things. To put it plainly, you have to commit to the idea through action, not just commit to the idea itself. And if you do this, you change the internal reflection, which alters the external direction. All of it starts within, and there is no love without limits. Until next time, always stay up to no good.